is thinking about writing about. Mr. Foster, what would be an idea about something where you learned something important?
Okay, sure. So I'll talk about a time that I went to an Astros game with my cousin.
Okay, and the Astros are a baseball team?
Yes, Houston Astros.
Houston Astros. Now, do some people call that H-Town?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Or Scrooston, as other people call it.
Oh, what was it?
Scrooston.
Okay. So, Mr. Foster, when you're thinking about this, there's a couple of things I'd like you to include in your story. And one of them is an attention getter to start your story. And an attention getter, gets your reader's attention, right? It's like when you fish with a hook and you want to catch a fish, you want to get its attention. And what I was thinking, Mr. Foster,
right, that lure kind of gets the fish to come, right?
And I was thinking that maybe you could either give us a sound effect, dialogue, which is people talking, or a question to start your story.
Well, sure. Like seeing this attention get there, fits in with sound effect. There's a word called onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. But it's where the word is written the way it sounds. So like pop, snap, sizzle. So I'm going to go ahead and use an onomatopoeia to start my story and make it an attention getter. I would write it in all caps as just one word, crack. So I would put crack in all caps and just put an exclamation point, because that in my story at this point, we were getting concessions at the concession stand. All of a sudden, crack. We just hear this loud click. You know that sound when the batter hits the ball perfectly in that right sweet spot? That's the sound we heard.
Okay.
So that would be the attention getter to get started.
So you got your attention getter. It's a sound effect. And I heard you describe the setting a little bit. So I'm going to move on to this next place because your reader needs to know where your story is taking place, Mr. Foster. Can you give me, how would I start by describing the setting where your story is taking place?
Yeah, sure. We were at Minute Maid Park, the baseball stadium in Houston.
We were at Minute
Stands. We wanted to get to eat and a drink.
We were at the concession stands waiting to get something to drink. Awesome. So now I'm picturing Mr. Foster that, you're standing in line, right? You're waiting to get your drink. Could you add in a little bit of dialogue? Dialogue is like when two people are talking.
Right, sure. So after we hear the sound, we turn. And then my first words were, I told my cousin, sounds like a home run for sure.
Sounds. And what I'm going to do, Mr. Foster, is when someone new talks, I'm going to drop down a line and I'm going to put quotation marks around what is being said. These are the words that came out of your mouth. Sounds like someone.
Sounds like a home run for sure. Or you can word it however you want. Get the gist of it.
Okay. And this is you saying it, right?
Yes.
I said. And you're with your cousin, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And his name is Marcus.
Okay. So Marcus said, what did Marcus say in return?
He said, yep. And look where the ball's heading.
And look where the ball is heading. Perfect. So what Mr. Foster and I have done is we've started a story. And you've noticed that we started with an attention getter. Mr. Foster used that sound effect. Mr. Foster, how could you start this with a question? Could you think of a way to start this story with a question?
To start with a question, sure. The question could be tying into the setting. Like the question could be, if I would say, let's say, would you like anything else with your drink, sir?
Okay. So you could put it in.
Person asking me.
Yeah. So what Mr. Foster did right there is he sort of combined these two. He used dialogue and a question, right? So you could start with the person working behind the register asking, "Would you like anything else?" Right? Okay. So that would be good, right? And I'm just going to put this down here for just a moment so we can use that. I noticed that you described the setting here, right? So you're at Minute Maid Park. He's talking a little bit about we are at the concession stand. Hey, Mr. Foster, who's we?
My cousin and I. You can say it like that.
So now I know that it's when he says we, I know that I know who he's talking about, right? So right away, I'm learning about where they are and who he's with. And then he's using some dialogue here. The last part, this is the dialogue, right, with those quotation marks. The last part is to hint as what comes next. Mr. Foster, what I mean by that is like you want your reader to remain interested and you want to kind of like spark their interest. Is there a way that you can kind of hint as to what might be coming next?
Okay, so maybe I would say something to the effect of, so he just said, look where the ball is heading. I would say here, keep the change, ma'am.
Okay.
I would tell my cousin, come on, let's go.
Keep the change, ma'am. Come on, Marcus. Let's go. So if I was the reader, I would start to be getting interested in this because I'd be anxious to know what is coming next.
I put an exclamation point there after the go too.
Okay. So I'm going to get anxious to read the rest of Mr. Foster's story because there's going to be something that's coming, right? This ball is being hit. Marcus is saying it's coming right towards them. Mr. Foster is saying, we got to go, we got to go. All of that, right, is making this story interesting to me. Mr. Foster, I'm just going to pause the video really quickly. Thank you for your help. I'm going to pause the video, and I'm going to use this later for my other classes because I think this is really good. And I'm just going to pause it here.